Greetings, friends. It's Tuesday, September 29th, 11:37 p.m. The Trump-Biden debate just finished about an hour ago. I prepared some notes. I'm going to do some commentary, a little bit of analysis. I'll summarize some of the main debate for you here. I know I don't normally do this political commentary. I'm no Sticks Hexenhammer constantly following the news cycle, but I thought for once in a while, why not tune in? And I did watch the whole debate. And nothing really stood out to me so much as so surprising. Trump is still Trump. I had seen a bit of Biden before, but he's still what I imagined him to be. Now I don't know about the whole electoral issue, like who's going to win the election. Like people like Ramsey Paul said say that demographics will more or less guarantee that Biden's going to win because the demographics have changed. That voters are going to favor him. More Hispanics, more minorities into the U.S. And who knows about the economic situation? Well, how that they say it's good. I don't know. I mean, they say it's improved, V-shaped recovery, or who knows how voters are going to respond to the continuing fallout from the virus, or what I would say is the government. Mandatory and draconian actions and shutdowns. That's what I would say. But regardless of where you stand on that issue, there is the real effect, and how's that going to translate into the election? I don't know. I'm just telling you here my summary and analysis of the debate. Who knows what the overall, what the result will be in the election, or whether some people even say civil war. There'll be a contesting the election, and Trump at the end. This issue did come up. Will you accept the results of the election? And it's not clear on either side. Well, Biden says yes, he will accept the results, and so will Trump. Trump says, well, there's fraud going on right now. But anyways, so he said, well, it may take months to see who wins, but the Supreme Court will ultimately decide the matter. That's what Trump said. So again, I'm no political analyst here. I'm not going to go too deep on this. I'm just read some of my notes, but the basic idea is that Trump is not a pushover. He's got a lot more energy than Biden. He's somewhat mentally sharper. You can see that. However, Biden did not have any real gaffe moment. He stuttered a few times. I mean, the biggest stutter he did was when they were talking about Medicare and Medicaid. He said, Medicare, Medicaid. It's like, okay, anyone could really do that. And so he didn't have any real idiot moments. So by that standard, the Democrats could claim a victory. There wasn't really any, there were a few moments where Trump looked like he was kind of spinning Biden because he really hammered Biden. He talked over Biden a lot. But so Biden also talked over him. And the moderator was constantly on Trump's case for interrupting, which he sort of had a right to do. But, I don't know. The moderator, he did actually press Biden. So I can't say that the moderator was against Trump. He did press Biden on a few issues. Like, what's your stance on the violence and the riots, Biden? Like, are you going to condemn it? And Biden didn't. He kind of said we need law and order, but with justice. He wouldn't say the law and order thing, which Trump kept. But anyways, the moderator pushed Trump a lot to stop interrupting. He didn't really do that with Biden, even though Biden did the interrupting, or not necessarily interrupting, but talking over someone. Like they're still talking, but you just kind of talk over them. And sometimes that interrupts what the listener can hear. But sometimes when they're talking over, you can kind of you can tune into sort of, two people at the same time. It can't go on too long, and then it does become distracting. But so I don't know. The moderator was really, trigger happy on calling out Trump on that. But I'm not claiming that he was totally stacked against Trump either. It was interesting though because, I'm not blaming Trump for behaving like he did because, in this situation, you pretty much have to talk over people. You have to come out swinging. Like you have to come out, and that doesn't mean that you completely disregard etiquette. But you have to know this is the situation you're dealing with. This is a blood sport. This is not an intellectual debate. This is not a university debate. And whether it's for one-liners and gotcha moments or not, it's not. The point is you don't stop talking. You do use some evasive tactics. You try not to be on the defensive enough. Trump was kind of on the defensive at times, but it didn't seem like that much. Like he was always constantly swinging it back at what Joe Biden accomplished in his career, which is, he says, not much. He kept saying, 47 years, you've done nothing, Joe. 47 years in politics. So there were the ad hominem attacks going back and forth, like Biden saying that Trump is just a liar and he has no plan to deal with the economy or to deal with the virus, and then Trump saying that Joe is stupid, and that his son was involved in illegal dealings, getting money from the mayor of Moscow. He was pressing that point. He was pressing different points. So, Trump, I don't know. I don't think he was really on the defensive that much in this debate. He held his own pretty well, but because Biden didn't really have... people were saying that Biden was going to get annihilated by Trump. I didn't really see him getting annihilated. Perhaps he did have an earpiece. Perhaps he was on stimulants. He didn't seem to faint. He didn't seem to slur. Maybe towards the end, I don't know, a few moments. He didn't look at Trump. He looked at the camera practically the whole time, which, maybe that's a good thing because you want to connect with the audience. But you could also see in the other shots that he didn't look like a regular person. He's more stiff and certainly a bit of a slower talker than Trump. Trump talks a bit more quickly than Biden. Not that Biden was so slow, but towards the end, around 10:30 p.m. after, because it started at 9, there were a few. I was listening to just the tone of Biden, and it was a little sleepy. I'm not saying like he sounded necessarily tired, but it's gonna make you feel sleepy a little bit. And I'm not saying it was so extreme. It was still coherent enough. There weren't any like real, he's having a seizure moment or anything like that. So, hey, what do I know? I haven't watched these guys very much recently. So what can I say? That's just, I know people say that Biden has like dementia or whatever, and maybe he does, but here, he seemed to more or less hold his own. So I'd say that alone is going to give the Dems the win in this debate, and it's the first debate, and that's pretty much the most important one. So that does not bode well for Trump. What's my personal opinion on Trump winning? Obviously he's been a big disappointment. The immigration issue hasn't really improved. I don't really believe all the economic stuff that it's improved, but hey, would we want him over Biden if you're a conservative, if you have right-wing views, if you're white? Yeah, you probably would. You probably would want him to win anyways, because things will probably be worse with Biden. However, with all this, culture war and all this escalation, you almost think the elites would let us breathe for a few years with Biden before things would ultimately go down the toilet anyways. But it's like, maybe we'll stop the riots when Biden gets in, and maybe we'll actually stop who knows? I don't think they'll stop lockdowns, but maybe we'll throw them some bones. And that could very well be true. Like Mersh from Revenge of the Cis, it's a comedy podcast, I don't know, but they actually do a lot of political commentary, and Mersh is like, well, yeah, we might agree with Trump in principle, apart from his, lukewarm record on getting the important things done. It's just like, well, even if you agree with him, then there could very well be more chaos and potentially, I don't know, civil war, who am I to say? By the way, I know I'm just a Canadian commenting on American politics, but we all do it. We all watch the U.S. Come on. Canada follows the U.S. too, so. But anyways, I know I'm not invested in it as Americans are, but it does affect all of us. So there's my analysis. It's already 10 minutes. If you want to stick around, now I'm going to go over some of my notes here. What did they actually talk about? How did this go down? The Declaration of Independence the text of it was written on the wall behind them in blue background, kind of light blue text. And of course, the first paragraph, not the whole document, but just the text of maybe the beginning of the document. It's saying like we're all created equal, or all men are created equal. So it's interesting that they had that there. Of course, the Declaration of Independence is not a constitutional document. It did not go into the Constitution, which the Americans made. They finished it. They ratified it. 1787 or late 1780s. I mean, the Declaration of Independence was from 1776, before they had even succeeded in separating from Great Britain. So it's more of this like, the lefties might like this, or libertarian types or whatever. I don't know about libertarianism. I don't know what I'm saying, but it's kind of it's equality, it's democracy, it's all that push for more social justice. Even we're all created equal. So you have that in the background. You have that messaging informing the space. The venue was practicing social distancing. Stupid term, but there were still some people. I mean, it was like a poorly attended event, but there were, I don't know, it's hard to say, but 100 or 200 people there, or maybe more, I don't know. So let's see here. The Trump, he pointed out, because right at the beginning the Supreme Court issue comes up, and Trump's response is, well, they're pressing on him, like, did you do the right thing? And Trump is basically saying that he pointed out that we won the election, and I'm elected for 4 years, not 3 years. So we get to put our person in court. That's how it works. And Biden was saying, you got to wait because the American people, they need to decide. So but the election, in Biden's words, he said, the election has already started, so we need to wait. And he claimed also that Trump would get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which I haven't followed too much about that stuff, but Biden was saying that women's rights could be limited by eliminating the Affordable Care Act, and people with pre-existing conditions, which Biden's claimed was 100 million people. Now, maybe I misheard that, but Trump was disputing this figure. He was saying he was calling him out on the 100 million figure of people with pre-existing conditions who can't get health care. And then Trump retorted, he said Biden would extinguish 180 million people who have, not the people, but their private health care plans in the private market. Those would be extinguished. And Trump said, then the Roe v. Wade issue came up, and Biden says that this issue is at stake. And Trump immediately interjected and said, no, that's not on the ballot. Biden said, well, in the court, in the Supreme Court, it's being disputed. So again, I'm not offering what's right or wrong there, but Trump was pretty quick to always interject things, which you could say, he's interrupting, he's talking over. But I mean, sometimes you got to do that. I mean, everyone's practicing their propaganda here, so sometimes you have to interject. Trump has to take control of the situation. He has to talk over Joe Biden. Sometimes he has to talk over the moderator. And there was a funny moment, not yet 20 minutes into the thing, I think, roughly, where the moderator was really pressing him on the Obama, not having a replacement to Obamacare after almost 4 years in office. He was calling out Trump on that. And he was going into detail. I mean, he was speaking one sentence, two sentences, and then Trump would respond, and then the moderator was like, let me finish my question, Mr. President. But it's like, okay, I mean, you have gone on here a little bit. So the moderator, I think, is, taking a bit of liberty there. But it basically, he's pressing him on not having a replacement to that. And, pardon me, it's late. It's almost midnight here. I'm a little slow. You gotta forgive me here. Yeah, Trump claims, no, I mean, we've been, doing well. We've been getting drug prices lower. And honestly, the way he said it, I wasn't even sure if he said they will be getting lower or they already are lower. So I have no idea if prescription drug prices are actually lower on the whole in the U.S. I mean, I guess it would depend on different circumstances. But it seems to me like it's a bad strategy for Trump to talk about Obamacare and all this stuff that would have been talked about in 2016. It's like, okay, we've dealt with it. You've dealt with it, or you haven't dealt with it. It's like by now it's stale. It's like we didn't hear him talking about Mexico or the wall or that's interesting. There was no discussion of immigration, Mexico, the wall, Barely came up. I don't think it came up. I don't even think the wall was mentioned once in the entire debate. Wouldn't that be something you could attack Trump on and say? I mean, he'd say, "Oh yeah, we've built a lot of the wall. We have," but in reality, I don't think they really have. But I mean, that would have been a point at least someone could press him on. But the thing is, Biden doesn't want the wall built, so it's not an issue. Anyways, so yeah, and Biden had, they're talking about Medicare, Medicaid. I mean, really, that's all kind of, I mean, it's important to a lot of Americans, but it's just kind of boring. And Trump had a moment where he says to Biden, "You agreed with Bernie Sanders on socialized medicine." I mean, that was a pretty good line. Pretty good, you gotta associate him with the far left if you want to win. And I mentioned how, Joe never looks at Trump. He looks straight at the camera always. Trump talking about getting rid of Obamacare. Obamacare was weak. And then there's the ad hominem back and forth. 47 years, Joe, you've gotten nothing done. Then Trump points out that no law enforcement organization supports Biden. That's moving on later into the whole topic of the unrest and the BLM and all those riots. But before we really go into that, there was, of course, the whole virus thing. I don't use the C word, or any of that stupid stuff for the algorithm. But Biden is claiming that 200,000 American dead from the virus and 7 million infected. And I mean, again, I don't need to go over all these points as I have in other videos. But the 200,000 figures, even if that's true, which it's obviously inflated, but even if it was 200,000, I mean, that's a bad flu season. It's nothing that unusual. But you could attack Trump on, so why did you lock down? Why did you? But no, then the assumptions here is like, we don't need to talk about the wall and immigration, or maybe that's just not on the agenda for that debate. And we both parties accept that that the coronavirus is so deadly and it's a really huge problem, when really it might just be a problem among many problems in the world, some of which are much, much, much more significant. But nope, both of them are totally on the same wavelength there. However, there is some more optimistic stuff for people who want freedom. Trump is, at least he's saying more or less the right things, although the stuff he says about the vaccine still scares me, because he's right on for getting a vaccine out as soon as possible, and he's saying that in the debate. He's, that's a big selling point for him. The vaccine, it's coming soon. We're going to have it for you. Satisfying everyone. Everyone wants the vaccine, right? So that's what the voters want to hear, I guess, the scared ones. But the thing that he didn't say is whether it would be mandatory. This discussion didn't even mention on personal freedoms. There was no talk of Americans losing personal freedoms, there was talk about the shutdown, but Trump didn't say anything about making the vaccine mandatory. I don't know if he would. He might. Who knows? Who knows if we can really trust this guy? But we know what Biden said. Biden said, more masks, we need to focus on getting the virus away, getting rid of it before we can open up the economy. He's saying this. He's confirming this stuff in the debate. Biden points out that Trump panicked in February, mishandled the situation. And there is perhaps some truth in this. I think Trump should have stuck to his guns, what he was originally saying, but Trump waffles. He's all over the place, he's a Gemini, so they tend to do that. They're very intense. That's why he has more energy than Biden. But anyways, Trump was originally saying it's like a flu. It's like a bad flu. And by the numbers, by the actual data, it's in line with a bad flu season. I'm not saying it's the same as a flu. But you can see the globalists and whatever, the elites, whoever they are, they put pressure on Trump too. He does what he has to do, and I'm no big Trump fan. I'm not very enthusiastic about him. I like him as a character. I think I would like to hang out with Donald Trump. I think that would be really cool. Do I think he's the right person exactly to be the president? I don't know. Better than Biden. Do I agree with everything he's done? No. Obviously not. But And I mean, sure, everyone's going to have a lot of ego and certain issues if you get to that level, of course. But, you know, I wouldn't mind hanging out with him, and he seems like a real person. Like they call him Orange Man, 'cause he's got all the color to his face. Well, yeah, he's a real person. That's what we like about him. We like that he has a personality, and he speaks his mind. I like that. That shows like a healthy masculine man. And Biden has no color. Biden is physically paler, quieter, slower, more plastic looking. That's why Trump has more of this natural appeal. He's more of a real person. He's not perfect. But I'm not saying he's necessarily on our side. But I'm not saying he's necessarily our enemy either. There's a bit of both going on. That's the thing that a lot of people don't understand. It's like they're either for him or they hate him so much. But Trump isn't exactly one thing or another, but he's more on our side sometimes, which is not much of an answer, I know. So if you're still don't worry, I got more notes here, so don't turn this off. I'm just getting a little sleepy here, just like Sleepy Joe. Right, just finishing up on this virus thing. Biden says that we got to provide more government money to fight the virus. So that's the message for you, public in America. More money to fight. So this is going to go on and on and on if Biden gets in. And then Trump asks, so should we have left the borders open back in March? And Biden called Trump xenophobic back then, at the time when all the lockdown was starting. Back then when he finally closed the borders, now you're xenophobic against Asians or against whatever countries were being prohibited. As they've done early on in his presidency, when there was like the temporary ban from certain countries which were predominantly Muslim, which they branded the Muslim ban. And I mean, so, and it's funny because that was the standard leftist position. Oh, we love open borders, and then finally the lockdown comes along, and now suddenly like closed borders are okay. So, but anyways, Trump was calling Biden out on that, and in this debate that people are going to call each other out on everything. Don't expect them to respond, because I mean you can't really realistically expect people to respond to all this stuff, because sometimes you just gotta say your thing. And Trump says, playing up his success with dealing with the virus, which of course I'm skeptical about the whole narrative, but people who believe it's been this deadly disaster that's killed so many people, then Trump is appealing. He's trying to say, well, we got the gowns, we got the masks, we made the ventilators. Like, ventilators kill people, they're terrible. If you go on a ventilator, your chance of survival is like less than 10%. It's going to mess up your lungs, it's going to dry out your lungs. But hey, and we all love masks, don't we? And we all love gowns, yeah. So, but there Trump is playing it up. I mean, it depends. Who are you talking to? Who is your audience? They're trying to appeal to all these different segments of the population. And then Joe Biden appealing to the public in the debate, he says, you or I, or someone in your family, we all know someone who has died from the virus. And he appeals for us to wear the mask. But how do we all know someone who died from the virus? I mean, when I've done the protests, sure, I've met a few people who claim to have family members, but I don't know anyone personally. I haven't talked to anyone personally who knows anyone that has died from it. I mean, again, I'm in Canada, but I don't think it's much different in the US. I mean, certain groups of people, especially 70 years older or plus, or certain people with diabetes, obese people, I mean, yeah, there's going to be more cases there, but a lot of people, it's like, it's not exact. Do you really think this is the issue that voters want to hear? Forget what I'm saying, but do you think this is the issue that most voters will be swayed by? You know someone that died from the virus. You got to vote for Joe Biden. I mean, maybe for a lot of liberals, yeah, maybe they'll eat. That is what they want to hear. I don't know. And like I said, Trump very enthusiastic about how fast the vaccine will be available, which worries me. The main question is, will it be mandatory or will it be voluntary? That's the main question. And then my final page of notes here. Biden, like I said, no idiot moment. I am preparing myself that this man may be president. Biden, he was going to continue the lockdowns, the restrictions, the masks. I mean, he didn't put it exactly in those words, but that seemed to be what he was saying. Trump favors opening up the economy. So here they differ. This was clearly discussed. Trump favors opening up the economy. He says, look, you can still socially distance, even though that's a silly thing, but you can still wear masks if you want. You can still take certain precautions, but we've got to get the economy going. We've got to continue the economic rebound, as he puts it, whether that's a totally real thing or not. When it comes to all this violence, Biden doesn't exactly condemn it. There's considerable airtime in this debate given to the controversy over Biden's son, or one of his sons. And Trump, calls out Biden for not saying the phrase law and order. And Trump could claim low unemployment. Apparently that's the stat. There is low unemployment. And he can claim some economic recovery. And then they get into the climate change thing a bit later on. And Trump is talking about rolling back the Obama climate change legislation to make energy prices for Americans lower. So he's claiming that as something he succeeded in doing. And I think the fact that they use the word climate change is silly because the climate is always changing. No one denies that the climate changes. Biden says clearly, like, no more coal. What am I saying? No more coal or oil, gas plants. I don't know if he said oil plants. He said no more coal or gas plants. And Biden says that he will rejoin the Paris Climate Accord. So there we see he's going to do the globalist thing. Not that Trump is, not somewhat of, Trump is affected by globalists too, but I just think this shows that Biden is affected much more by them, or he's one of them. And then Biden was talking about, the Amazon rainforest, we have to stop tearing it down. We're going to stop tearing it down. But I mean, does the average American viewer care about the Amazon rainforest burning? I mean, again, this is just for a certain segment of the population. I don't think middle America really cares about what's going on in Brazil and Colombia right now. And so then this is getting into the final stage in the debate where they're talking about what's going to happen when the actual election happens, and is it going to be accepted. So this is kind of like, I know it's at the end of the video, but it might be some of the most serious stuff because we're worried about I don't know if my friend was saying, like, could there be an actual civil war in the U.S.? And I said, well, Antifa and BLM, they're not really trained with military methods very much, and militias would easily defeat them, and just average Americans with their gun culture would easily defeat them. And it's like, well, that's true, but then he pointed out, I mean, there may be, like, in the event of some confusion after the election, like, even different branches of the military not all follow the orders of the president, or whether he is the president at the time. See, so I don't know. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but anyways, so, pardon me. Biden says that he will accept the result of the election no matter what. Trump says, well, the result of the election could take months to decide. And so this is why some people are alarmist about Trump and saying that he's not going to accept the election. This is going to be like a totalitarianism. It could show that, but I mean, we all know the other side. Can we really trust them either? Because Trump is talking about all this mail-in voting nonsense. He's saying that it's okay for what he calls a solicited vote to take place. I think you send a letter to a certain organization, they send it back to you personally. So there's some relationship established there, so that's a solicited vote. I don't know what the alternative is, something more sketchy. Or he says, of course, voting in person. So Trump is playing up doing the solicited vote, or, of course, going out physically and voting, which seems honest to me. I mean, that's originally what voting was. You show up in person. And originally you did it, you stood up and you said to everyone in the hall how you were voting. Originally that's how voting used to be. But Trump points out that massive fraud is going on. So for Trump, his answer was, well, the Supreme Court will have to decide the ballot issue. Now, I don't know if he means the ballot issue after the election or right. Well, I don't. It's not long enough for them to decide it right now before the election because the election is coming up soon. So, but he's talking about, we're going to need the Supreme Court to eventually decide this issue. So it could take a few months in a contested result. Now, hopefully, if it's not that close, then there won't be any need for that. Trump points out that his supporters were barred from watching the polls in Philadelphia. Again, I'm not saying that all these claims are exactly true. Any fact checker can correct me. That's fine. I'm just trying to report on what he said. So, Biden might say, I'm not saying that everything Trump says is true or Biden either. Trump claims that military ballots which have been sent in for him in his name to vote for him were found in the trash. Again, I didn't get all the specifics of that in my note, but it's there in the debate. You can go and listen. So Biden says, basically in summary, he says, well, the votes will be counted and he, Trump, or I, Joe Biden, we will accept the results. So Biden was trying to calm down, but Trump, it's not going to calm down anyone. But again, he's standing his ground, so Trump is no pushover. That's at least you'll get that from this debate. He's no pushover. So that's basically it. Those are my notes. At the end, Melania Trump comes on stage looking nice. I mean, I know she must have had plastic surgery and all that, but she must have. But she seems to be a nice woman. She looked nice. She was smiling, and she and Trump, they stood there on the stage for a little bit, and Joe Biden's wife Jill also came up after, and she stood with Joe for a little bit. But the difference is that Melania Trump was not wearing the mask, looking like a normal person. Jill Biden was wearing not just a mask, but the black mask. It's like a ninja mask or it's like a burqa. I mean, you could be wearing any other color. And I mean, they're silly colors, but she was wearing. But anyways, the point is, she was wearing the mask. Jill Biden, looking like some kind of wife of Aladdin or ninja lady, and just very disconcerting, very uncomfortable look. Just to complete the awkward Biden look, get his wife with the burqa ninja mask on the stage. Well, there we go, folks. Hasta luego, amigos.